Have you ever wanted to play something that feels like Firefly or Star Wars? Maybe you've always dreamed of running your own transport hub out in space. Are you a military brat or a space pirate? You found the right system. Let's talk about Traveler 2nd Edition.
lead the way. New RPG systems every day. Dice roll, quick adventure calls. Walking through tabletop's golden halls. Masters of pen and paper. RPGs of every flavor. Talking about different creators. The choice of games is never greater. Come with us to games they run through. New, old, and interesting. Thank you all for listening.
All right. You got Finny and
DG!
yeah. Welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking about Traveler 2E.
Traveler.
The second
Not
edition
original
of
edition Traveler.
Not the original, no.
This is like the new Coke, but when they went back to Coca-Cola Classic, right?
the new old Coke.
The new old Coke. They took what was good and then they made it better.
Yeah. Well, depends on how you look at it.
It depends. Have you been playing this from day one? Maybe you wouldn't see it that way. Are you coming into it brand new? You probably would.
Yeah. So we're starting with Traveler here. Originally created by Mark Miller, Frank Chadwick, John Harshman, and Lauren Wiseman in 1977.
That's quite a mouthful. And the other thing that is cool about this is that it was published by Game Designers Workshop, not Games Workshop.
Not
Game Designers Workshop, not
Yes.
Games Workshop. Because when I saw that originally, I was like, these are the same guys that did Warhammer? But I was like, wait. Not Games Workshop, Games Designers Workshop.
Yeah, this company doesn't exist anymore.
No, that's
And
completely
hasn't for a
different.
long time.
I was that was still fun to read originally, and then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, no, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. And it is one of the, if not the original sci-fi RPG.
That's right. Yes, it's kind of been coined as the original. There's been many up now, right? There's like every pop culture product out there. Like there's a Star Wars RPG, there's a Star Trek RPG, there's, like all of those things. They have a tabletop game, but this is the one that before those existed, you would make that world in and play it in this system.
Yeah, this is the... So all of those others are IPs that had other products.
Like licensing.
Yeah, this is Traveler. It
Yeah.
always has been Traveler. There's no Traveler TV show. There's no Traveler
right.
movie. There's no
Yes.
there's Traveler books, but we'll get to that later. And it's since gone through a whole bunch of transformations since 1977. So many transformations, so many different publishers have picked up the license for it as it's gone through it. Mongoose Publishing picked up Traveler in 2008. In 2016, they made and published Traveler 2nd Edition.
I get it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So they basically they were like, here's this game that exists. That's awesome. That is not really doing much. They bought the rights to it, and then they created a new version of it with playtesting from the community. So they were like, hey, we want to build a new version of this game. And they work with their community, and 2016 rolls around. Boom, here is 2nd edition.
Yes. And in 2022, they revised their second
Was that
edition
their core rule book? There was core rule book 2022 kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's cool.
There's an old core rule book, and then there's a quote unquote new core rule book where they basically just, as far as I know, they just moved some things around and made some pretty pictures for it.
Some like errata.
Yeah.
Some updates to the graphics. maybe a couple things here and there, but it's not like they released, you know, like D&D did 3 and then 3.5. It's not like it was that drastic. It was more like a little bit.
It's not even Pathfinder remaster different.
It's kind of like 2 to 2.01, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Minor updates.
Exactly, yeah.
And so as we were kind of looking up things for this podcast, I also found out that Mongoose Publishing, who picked this game up, also released tabletop RPGs for both the properties Judge Dredd and a game called Paranoia.
Yeah, Paranoia.
And that was one that so I'm not familiar with Paranoia. I'm going to have to brush up on this, but you were saying that's one that's on our list.
That's on our list, yeah. Paranoia is definitely on our list because it is a really neat little game that is... on paper, it sounds a lot of fun, so
nice.
We're going to have to
fiddle
around with that.
We're going to have to dive deep into that. So getting back on a Traveler here. So you were saying Mongoose's version here is built like on the foundation of the classic Traveler. So like the OG Traveler that they bought, the new version, new Traveler as it's affectionately called, built on that foundation, and then it kind of keeps that feeling, right? Like, so, because one thing that a lot of people were saying that they really like about this was that even though it's a new game and that they've kind of changed some of the mechanics and they've changed a few things, it still feels like that old version. It has that kind of air of the classic game still built within it.
It does. And we'll get into this later because it builds on the lore of the original Traveler. The galaxy of Traveler is still from 1977. It's just been built upon and built upon and built upon.
Right. And that's something that I found out too, is that when Mongoose took this over, part of their publishing kick is that they've released a ton of books in the Traveler universe. So they've pushed this game out even further than it was before in the form of, you know, factions, and they've galaxies and adventures and all of these kind of other things. And they just built this out. And it sounds like they've also built this out hand in hand with the community, because one of the things that a lot of people were saying their favorite thing about Traveler is that there's blogs, there's podcasts, there's forums, there's wikis, there's maps, there's generators. Like, there's these community-driven platforms that exist for this system because it dates all the way back to 1977. There's so much love for this game that I didn't even realize how deep that actually went. And so to see a company pick a game up and not change it, right? They didn't change it into their own image. They improved on it, right? And that's awesome. I love to see that.
Yeah, they did not change very much, and
like the important things, the pillars of the game are still standing.
Yeah, they did sugarcoat second edition a little bit.
I've heard it's a little bit harder to die, which I got to tell you, it's really easy to die in this game, considering that you can die in the character creator.
Well, no, you can't. Variant rules. But in the original, you could.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But every time you roll the survival check when you character create, if you failed your survival, your character died.
That was it.
That was it.
Game over.
You threw
Good
that
game.
paper
I hope you enjoyed
away.
it.
throw the paper away because you're making a new character. Yeah,
so cool. And I mean, I like that.
When they originally released second edition, the community, the old guys in the community pushed back. They're like, what is this?
The grognards.
We didn't want this. Where's my character dying in creation? I want that back. And Mongoose said, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you guys are going to put up such a fuss about it, we're going to... Sure, here, it's a variant rule. You're welcome to use it. It's called Iron Man mode, and if you fail your survival check, you die again. There you go." And they were happy.
Yeah, and that's something that's really cool about it, is that you know your game is good when the original players of it see a new version and are not immediately mad that it's different. Like, consider Dungeons and Dragons, right? you got the OG D&D players from D&D 1, D&D 2 kind of thing. And when they look at D&D 5, they're like, no. That's like baby. That's Fisher Price. That's my first Dungeons and Dragons. And so when you have a game like Traveler and you've got those grognards from Traveler 1, come and play Traveler 2, and they're still happy with the new system, I think that's how you can tell that your game's a winner at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And how it tells you that you did well transforming it and bringing it into the future here.
Absolutely. I think it's time that we jump into we got to get into the guts, the nuts and bolts of the system. Something that is fascinating. So when you originally brought this concept to me, we did character creation live on stream, which is available on the YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/@DadGamingOnline, you can find it in the live streams. We did a 2-parter. We built Traveler characters. Something that I really like about this game, 2 things. Number 1, the character creation system is like its own little mini game tucked inside of the game. And that's really cool. And number 2, we're not on D20. We're not in D20 Kansas anymore, Dorothy. We're moving on to a new system. We're into 2D6 territory.
That's right. That is my favorite part about this. Well, no.
One of.
I personally love this system because 2D6 makes it super simple. Yep. We are shifting away from the D20 with so you got your D20, you got your D12, you got your D10s, you got your D8, your D6, your D4.
They do use a D20 in there somewhere, don't they? Or is there no D20s in this at all?
There's no D20s.
There's nothing at all. I thought for some reason, I might be getting this confused with Morkborg too, though, because I kind of learned them at the same time. But
this is 2D6s.
2D6. There's no 20s.
All you need 2 6-sided die, and you can play Traveler.
Nice.
And that is so cool because everybody has 2D6.
Just raid the Yahtzee game. You got yourself at least 5 there.
Exactly. And so we're shifting away from the D20 system with Traveler here. And this is another rules light game with not nearly as rules light as Merkborg is, but
kind of like right in the middle almost. Like we're not going that far down, but
considerably less than D&D or Pathfinder. So this is it's really neat to see. So, character creation. You have your 6 characteristics, 3 of which are your quote-unquote physical characteristics, your strength, your dexterity, and your endurance. Strength being strength, dexterity being dexterity. Endurance is your...
It's constitution. Let's just call it out. That's what it is.
It's stamina. When you take damage, it comes off of your endurance first, and then... from there on out. Next up, you have your mental characteristics, which are in intellect, not to be confused with intelligence.
Yep, this is different.
Short form is still INT, very confusing. You have your education and your social standing,
right?
Which is a really different mechanic here.
It's like charisma, but different.
It's like, but different.
Yeah, it's the impact on you, less the impact you have on others kind of thing, right?
And
like that's kind of the way it works.
Literally your social standing. If you roll a 10 or higher in your social standing, you get to be like a knight or something, or a noble, right? It's not just, oh, I have high charisma, I can talk well. No. So you get those, right? And to roll those, we roll our 2d6. That's it.
Yeah.
No racial bonuses, no nothings. You get 2d6. When you roll your 2d6, you grab your modifier off of a table. That's going to be a common thing here, just like Merkborg. Tables, and more tables. Yep. The only thing that has more tables than Merkborg is Traveler.
But with good reason though, right? Because I mean, the thing about this is that when games introduce a lot of tables like this, they lend themselves to generators, which the community creates the generators, and you don't have to worry about any of this, right? You can go through the book and create it manually, but you can also use the generators to do it a lot simpler than this.
Yeah. And it also gives... There's a lot more tables in it because there is a lot more to this game.
It's a heavier game.
It's a heavier game. Not so much rules-wise, but there's more breadth to it, right? More width to this game than there would be. So anyways, once you grab your modifier from a table, you throw your ability, your characteristic score out the window, and you just play with your modifier again, which is super slick. Anytime you make a skill check or some sort of check is called for you, you roll your 2d6, add any modifiers, and all you're trying to beat is an 8.
Right.
The referee in this, the GM, does not adjust the difficulty, like the DC. It's always 8. So what happens is the more difficult things just get a -2 to your roll.
Like a modifier gets added to it, kind of thing.
Gets added to your roll, never to the DC. So it's
and
always 8.
Are the modifiers similar to that of the players where they cap out at plus and -3? Or do they go above plus and -3?
They do go above plus and
so
-3.
the character's skills cap at plus -3 for modifiers. But other things could theoretically be more or less difficult depending on scenario and context.
You can get up to a -6 or a +6 dice modifier, which is what it's called DM in Traveler, and the dice modifier is, so if it's like a near impossible task for you to do, it'll be a DM +6. Or sorry, -6. DM -6.
DM -6. Okay.
So it'll take your roll and it'll subtract 6 from it. And if you still hit your 8, hey, you did it. But otherwise, you didn't do it. And the opposite, if it's super simple and it's a DM +6, all you have to roll is a 2 to make your thing, which 2d6 is pretty impossible to screw that up. Unless you have a negative modifier.
Unless there's a modifier in your ability scores. Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. And it also simplifies it. It sounds complicated as you're like going through the book and reading it. But once you start putting all the pieces together, you're like, oh, this makes total sense when I want to do this type of skill, when I need to use my Streetwise skill and I have a +1 in Streetwise. I have to hit 8. So I have a +1. That means I need to roll a 7 or greater on the 2d6.
And it makes it very simple.
And you find after a while you just kind of start like snap. There it is, very simple.
The player knows this too. It's not a secret. It's not a secret that the referee just
you got to hit 8.
Back. If you hit 8, you do it. Now, that being said, there are degrees of success and failure, and they mostly are flavor. So if you moderately succeed at something, you get like, you hit 9 instead of 8, you moderately succeed. So, okay, you did good enough. You did it. It's not pretty, but you did it. Or if you hit like 15, you greatly succeed or something. I can't remember the wording off the top of my head. And basically all that does is you, with a flourish of your hand and very like really easy for you, you did it. And it's mostly flavor until we get to a little thing called task chains, which are skill checks basically for the entire party, and it chains together. So one person starts the chain and they do something like say we're flying in a ship and we're under heavy fire. Panels are flying off of our spaceship. Pilots doing evasive maneuvers. The engineers trying to run around under deck trying to fix everything. The gunners going off the back. The comms are hailing somebody. all of a sudden the referee pulls back and he says, whoa. Let's
slow it down a minute.
Let's take a hot second here. Who's doing what first?
Right.
Well, the pilot's doing evasive maneuvers. Okay, so you are the first one on your task chain. What's happening next? Well, the gunner's in the gunner seat, turning around and shooting that bugger off. Okay, you're number 2. So then we go down.
It's like an initiative order for doing skill checks, basically.
Yeah. And
that
then
changes.
and then the first person they start the skill chain. So or the task chain, you roll your check, and if you succeed, you get to give the next person down the line a +1 or a +2 or a +3, depending on how much you succeeded. So if you got a moderate success, you give the next person down the line a +1. If you greatly succeed, you give the next person a +3. So then, and that keeps culminating down the line. So by the time it gets to the last person, hopefully, if everybody made their checks, the last person has a +3 to do their last skill check with.
Hopefully they're not coming up on the heels of an exceptional failure, right?
Exactly. Because then they get 0 or a -2 or a -3 for their next check.
Yeah, the effect results is really cool. That's a very cool system, right?
It is.
I like the concept of like exceptional failure and exceptional success being like the crit and the fumble kind of concept. But where the exceptional failure is like you failed this task so badly that if everything that could have possibly gone wrong for this went wrong. And so it gives you an opportunity to use that to jump off of and explain what was. Maybe you roll that, you're like, to go back to your example of the pilot plots the course and exceptionally fails. He plots the course to the wrong planet, right? Yeah. And so then the gunner's in the gunner's seat, but there's nothing to shoot. And the whole chain starts to fail. Exactly. Right, one after another, right? Like it's such a cool system that allows for really good storytelling.
And that's what this system excels at, I find, is it's great at telling stories and exploring what the referee has to give out to everybody. Because as you fail, well, this is what happens. Well, how did you fail? Because that's what we're asking here. We don't care that you failed. How did it happen? What does it look like? And
exactly.
Then how does that impact the next person down the line? And it's so cool.
Yeah, I it's just such a cool concept. It's a very, very interesting add-on. And it's almost one of those things that is like, this is something I need to steal for my games, right? Like, I really like that concept that the one thing could change the course of events so hard that all of a sudden now we're in a completely different area than where we started, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just really cool. I like that a lot.
I like that the failure of the individual can affect the group and not just in combat, and not just, because so and so is fallen down now and we have to go rescue them. No, it fully impacts the group.
That's right.
And that is it really lends itself to team building and whatnot in the game. Sorry, let's go back to character creation for a hot minute, because I really love character creation.
The character creation is super cool.
Yeah.
It is a really awesome system.
It is, because so you roll your characteristics, right? You got your modifier. Now what? You decide if your character goes to school.
That's right.
Or if they go to military academy. So what you do in character creation is actually build and flesh out their backstory. You don't have to come up with a backstory for your character.
You're not writing what happened to get him to be a traveler. You're writing what happened to get him to this point. The pre-career kind of thing.
Yeah. And very unlike the systems that we've talked about before, you're not a hero in Traveler.
No, you're just some guy.
You're not this omnipotent being that can just, wave his axe at an orc and have it fall over dead. You are a very human being.
You're just a person. You're just some dude. The character creation in this game is so well done. In the core rule book on page 10, there is a flow chart that kind of is like, here's where you start, and then this is what you do. And it literally goes through the whole process. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you pass this? Did you pass that? If you didn't do this, then you go here, and then it literally maps it out all the way along until you get to the end and you're like, here we go. Time for us to go. Yeah. And I gotta tell you, that is just such a phenomenal system. This is what we did in our stream, right? We started with nothing. We started with a blank sheet and the rule book, and we said, okay, let's go. We created names. We were pulling planets out of like old history books. Yep. We were creating rivals. We were creating like enemies. One of our characters is like, I'm going to university, and they flunked out. And by the end of it, they were like space trash, right? Like it was such a cool thing, right? Like kudos to the team for their character creation. Finn, do you know, was this type of character creation in the original Traveler?
Yeah.
To this degree. Okay, so this is right out of the OG then.
They might not have had as many
like maybe it's choices. A little more fleshed out or so, but the concept,
essentially the bare basics of it was the exact same.
I love it.
And
I love it.
I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but it had two old school players playing with some new people. Kidding. And they're like, yeah, we used to sit down and just roll characters because it was so fun.
It's so fun.
They said 1 out of 4 would die.
Yeah, you're gonna need them.
So that's out of character creation. That's 25% mortality.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like, okay. You're saying that they would create so many characters because one of them would die during character creation.
Yeah, he said, and that's funny. And it's so fun. I mean, when we did it on stream, that was what, 2.5 hours.
It was about that, yeah, about that.
And I mean, we hardly knew what we were doing.
We went in 100% blind.
Yeah.
In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, you were the only one that actually even read the rule book. The rest of us were like, "What's this game called again?" So going in completely blind, we had the vast majority of it completed within that time frame.
And it was fun. It was
so fun. It was like playing its own game.
That is exactly what I'm trying to say. It is just like playing a miniature game.
Character creator, the RPG.
Yeah, exactly. And what I really enjoy about it is that, okay, so you decide if you go to school or the military academy. At that point in time, your character is 18 years old.
Yep.
So you spend 4 years in either school or the military, and then after that you are now 22 years old.
Yep.
What do? You go find a job.
Yep.
Or you stay in the military.
That's right. You can do another tour, but as you make those decisions, you gain more skills.
You do.
You gain more things. Yeah. But you start to age up.
You do. And after age 45 or something like that, or I can't remember, 42 maybe it was, you start to have to roll on the aging table because you are getting too old. You are starting to slow down. You're not getting too old because that's an ageist thing. We're not doing that here.
You're not getting too old, but it's getting a lot more difficult to travel the way that you used to.
Your body is starting to slow down and not keep up. So you roll and maybe you take a hit to your dexterity. Or maybe you take -1 to strength. But you can still keep going. You can still keep going to school or go to your job. And you can come out, when you come out of that, it does give you rewards for being in that job for a certain amount of time and for being in longer as well. So on top of your skills that you get, which there's like a whole bunch of skills. There's probably
a lot,
40 skills. That
you'll have to go and look them up.
Yeah.
I considered reading them out, and I was like, no, that would take just too long. There's a ton, and not only is there a ton, but there's certain ones that have multiple avenues.
They have specialties under them.
Specialties, right? Like, so one was like computer programming or something like that. And there was different specialties of what type of programming that you did, type of idea.
Weapons training has like shotguns, pulse rifles, pistols, throwers, and something else. And you can specialize in those as well. Now,
electronics was what I was thinking.
Electronics, yes. Now, the highest ability or the highest skill modifier you can get in there is +3 in each of those skills. So,
but you have to specialize in that one. Right?
Yeah, you do have to specialize in that one. Yeah. So if you want to be really good with shotguns, you go to military training, become good with shotguns, and that specifically trains that shotgun skill. It does not train all of your weapon skills.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not kidding here. Like, for example, right? Let me find one here. So let's say that you wanted to specialize in flyer. You wanted to be someone who flies ships. Well, now you can specialize in an airship, in grav, in ornithopter, in rotors, in wings. Do you want to fly the whole ship? Do you want to just fly a section of the ship? Do you want to be in charge of one area? So like the granularity that you can get into in this, if you're somebody that's like, no, I want to be this specialized character that does this specialized thing, you can be that person, right? Something that really lends itself well here is the concept of the building the game around the players and not the other way around.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool.
It is. Because and as your character grows up and you see this all develop, because every time you go to school or your job, you have to roll survival, whether you make it through that 4 years of that particular thing.
Exactly.
And if you don't, you're not allowed back in. Next year, you got to go somewhere else.
Find a job.
So then you have this character that develops right in front of you, and it makes itself, and it forms, and it grows, and you just get to you flavorfully add, oh, this happened. I flunked out because I got sent to jail because this happened.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And
it's insane.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. Look, I have to run down the list of science. Have you seen the list of specialties in science?
I personally have, yeah.
Okay, let me run through this really quick. Let's start. We'll start the clock. Here we go. Ready? Under the science, the specialties are archaeology, astronomy, biology, chemistry, cosmology, cybernetics, economics, genetics, history, linguistics, philosophy, physics, planetology, psionicology, psychology, robotics, sophontology, and xenology.
Yep.
You got to pick one or many. You could be the Spock of your ship.
Yeah.
Right?
You
but
can.
You have to choose where you want to specialize, and your science specialty in history may be a +3, but your science specialty in chemistry might be a -3, right? Like it's insane. It is absolutely nuts how granular you make your character, and it's one of the absolute things I love. The character creation, I don't think I could say enough nice things about. It is just such a cool concept. I love it so much.
I will note that you cannot get a -3 in a science skill if you have a +3 in another one, because you have to have a 0 in one of them, which is gives you training in all the science skills.
Okay.
So you get a 0 in all your science skills, so you'll never roll a science skill with a negative modifier.
Fair. So you would have a +3 in one, and you could have a 0 in another.
Exactly.
Because you're trained in science, but you're not specialized in it, right? And that's kind of the concept behind it, right?
Yeah.
You could be the ship's doctor, but that doesn't make you the the person who is the master.
You can't be a master. You can't be the surgeon.
You can't be the surgeon, but maybe you can fix the boo-boos kind
That's
of thing.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and same with the gun skill. You can shoot all the guns, and you can do the things with the guns, but you're really good at shotguns. Or you're really good with las pistols.
That was like you good from birth, and it helps. It fleshes out your character, like you said. It builds the story behind it. It's, I don't know. It's just it's phenomenal.
It's like I say, I can't, like you said, I can't say.
It's a perfect system that makes me want to rip it off for my D&D games. It's like, no, nobody's picking the characters that they want. We're gonna roll for them.
we got a different system for that. Don't worry, buddy. We'll get to that soon.
As far as it goes for the, have we gone into the actual characteristics? Like we talked about it being modifier only. You do 2d6 6 times. That's how you populate those. Yep. Those characteristics and the ability scores. Let's get into combat, Finn. When the chips are down, pirates are raiding the ship. You reach for your space pistol. How does this work?
First off, your initiative is decided by
agility
things. Yeah. Dexterity, I think.
Or dexterity. Yeah, there's no agility, but
there's no agility. Yeah, unfortunately. But you do get actions.
Right.
So this is not actions like Pathfinder. You get a major action and a minor action and a movement.
Got it.
Very much like D&D 40, you can sub a major action for 2 minor actions. Minor actions are certain actions like standing up after being prone, crouching down, things like that. Drawing a weapon, I believe, is a minor action as well. Major actions are firing a weapon.
Yeah, the attack
first
action, right?
Stuff like that. Things that take time.
Yeah.
And then movement. And this is only for basically grid playing with
miniatures. If you were going to have like the miniature style combat, you weren't doing theater of the mind. Yeah.
You get 6 meters, they say, or roughly 18 feet of movement, which isn't a lot.
That's not a lot, but that's also hard. I think if it were me, I would go one way or the other. I think me running the game, it's an interesting choice, and it kind of just goes to show that it's likely that the game had miniatures added on after the fact, because 6 meters or 18 feet, that's hard to put on a grid, right? I think I would either make this 20 feet or 15 feet, just for simplicity's sake.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you could say that each square is,
a meter,
and then say you can move 6 squares. But I think I would make a change. This would be one of the spots where I'd be like, I know in the book it says 18 feet. We're rounding up to 20. Everybody gets to move 4 squares.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, again, the theme of the podcast it's your game.
That's right. My table, my rules.
Yeah.
Your fun is valid. You play however you want to play. But I value, when I'm running a game, I value simplicity, because I'm already thinking of about a billion things behind the screen. The last thing I want people arguing whether or not they could move into that square. Yeah. So it's really simple to be like, you can move 4 squares. Anyways, moving on.
Moving on to, combat is, so you roll your initiative, which is either dexterity or
an intellect.
Intellect, yes. And that sets the initiative. Now, that's not to say you can't roll anything else, because if you have, I think tactics lets you roll tactics for initiative as well.
Right. Yeah, there's different skills, there's different things that change potential for your initiative, but let's say base initiative, your turn's up,
dex or intellect. Yeah. And then just like everybody else, you get your order, good guy, whoever rolled the highest, right down the line for whoever's in the battle at the time. Then what happens is you get your movement, your major or your significant action, as it's called in this, and your minor action, if you have one. You have unlimited reactions.
Okay.
So you can dodge every bullet that's coming at you. If you got 4 enemies firing at you, you can attempt to dodge 4 times. Now, that being said, every time you dodge, you get DM minuses to your next roll, your next attack, because you are doing things out of your turn, and it is
right. There's a penalty to it.
There is.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because you don't want to create a system where no matter what the players are attempting, they'll always try and not get hit, but you want it risk versus reward, right? You're surrounded, you want to dodge those attacks, but you can't afford 4 of them. Maybe you can only afford 2 dodges.
Exactly.
So you got to make that decision. What are you going to do?
Or you decide, hey, I'm going to dodge all these and duck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then you make your attack rolls. Attacks are, and this is another really cool thing that I like about Traveler, is that skill checks, like making an attack, if you're attacking with your gun, it takes the gun skill. Okay,
right.
That's simple. Now,
because you're trained in it. Yep.
It also takes either your dexterity or your intellect or something else. If you're trying to draw a bead on a guy and he's like far away, the referee could say, okay, roll gun combat with endurance, because you're holding your breath, you're trying to stay steady and shoot that guy from a long ways away. Or if make dexterity with your gun combat, because he's moving around real quick,
right?
Stuff like that. So, and that goes with any skill check. You get your skill check plus whatever characteristic is modifying it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so you could, like in that example, you could have a +3 in gun combat, but a 0 or a -3 in your dexterity check kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it actually balances out to nothing.
Yeah.
Then you roll your 2d6 and away you go. The stacking of the layering of that, those ability checks, that's really cool. Those skill checks and stuff. I think that's a really cool concept too. And again, it filters back into creating the story, right?
Yeah.
The concept of the referee to build that narrative, and the players to have the player sheet that allows them to do that complex move without it being complex. You look at your list, you pick the 2 or the 3 or the 4 or whatever it is that's piling up on it, you add those numbers together, and then you roll your 2d6, whatever number it is. Does it beat 8? Away you go.
Exactly. If it beats 8, you did it. And that's so cool. And it's very simple and clean. Mm-hmm. And I really, really enjoy that about this game.
One of the other things that you had said here for combat actions is that you do have the ability to take away your major action or your significant action and replace it with 2 minor actions.
Yeah. So, I mean, your minor actions are things like I said, changing your stance, aiming, because you can aim in this game. You can take a minor action, draw a bead. It gives you a +1 to your next roll for your attack. But you can also do stuff like reloading your gun on your turn instead of
holstering a weapon.
Yeah. Holstering,
drawing a weapon,
changing your stance. Like, hey, I don't want to be, I don't
standing out in the open.
Standing out in the open, so I'm going to move over here and duck behind that rock. Okay, that's a minor action and your movement. And then I pull around the corner and I draw my bead. Okay, so that's another minor action. You can't fire this round, but next round
you're ready to go.
The next round you will have your +1 and you'll be ready to go if he's still standing there. Yeah,
it's just all of that layering. I think that's really phenomenal. A really cool system again. And considering the narrative focus for the game, seeing a combat that's not complicated, it's not over complicated. It is really refreshing.
It doesn't drag on either.
No, the whole point's just to get through where we gotta go.
And the other thing is, people die quick.
That's right. Yeah, there's a short lifespan sometimes.
There are no hit points in Traveler. So if you get shot, you don't have a stack of 10 hit points to take down.
This is where your endurance comes in.
It comes off of your endurance first. And once that hits 0, your endurance, then all of a sudden it comes off of your strength or your dexterity.
Right.
And the next
0 you get.
The next 0 you get, you're laying on the floor, bleeding out.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, after, so the first set always comes off of endurance until endurance hits 0. After that, the player gets to choose which stat, and they can split that damage.
Yeah, so you can prolong it if you wanted to.
You can prolong it,
but every time you're hurting unit at that point.
Exactly. Now, I mean, there's armor and other things that do come into account, and all they do is it's a damage reduction. So if they hit you, if they roll their 8, they still hit you. You just reduce the damage by whatever your armor says.
Makes sense.
Now
that makes sense.
Other thing, the amount of items in this game nearly rivals D&D and Pathfinder.
And growing, right?
And growing. They release all sorts of stuff. There's books of items.
Yeah.
Like books of them.
And they're so ingrained with the community that it's literally always growing, right?
It is.
It's a lot like Merkborg, where that we saw the publishers they encourage community growth. They want to see the players coming up with stuff, and as the players come up with stuff, the content gets created, the universe gets expanded, a few more things get added, and boom, off we go. We keep kind of chugging along, and the system grows, right?
Yeah. It's so cool.
Like an endless amount of items, and the ability to create your own too, right? Like, I mean, we kind of take for granted in when we're talking about this, right? The concept of like adding in enemies, adding in items, adding in things. This system lends itself very well for you to take from other systems and plop them into here. Want to create a type of monster alien creature that resembles like a floating eye orb with a bunch of eye stalks that we're not going to name the product because it's part of a certain game, part of that company that makes that really big RPG. You could do what you need to do with this game in order to just bring that monster straight into the game using the Traveler's rule set. And it's actually relatively simple.
And they do have other species to play as instead of just human.
Yeah, it's not just human.
When we built our characters, we
were just
humans because it was pretty simple for us to do that. But there are 3. There's one that's like a 6 appendaged starfish with 6 appendages on the end of each appendage. It's crazy. And then there's also psionic people as well. That's the other thing. When you're curating your character, you have a chance to roll for psionics, which is a very taboo thing in Traveler. They are
it's
hunted.
the magic.
It's the magic. But it is also very frowned upon in the lore of Traveler to be a psionic. Now, that being said, you do also get all the cool stuff with psionics, and like you said, it is the magic of Traveler, because Traveler is based in real physics, right?
Yeah.
It's not, like I said, you don't swing your axe and the orc suddenly becomes dead. It's very real physics. A laser shot to you is going to hurt you a lot, and it's going to be a very, very important thing for you to not get shot again.
Sorry, I was scrolling through the sheet because I needed to find the aliens for the game. So we spoke about the humans. The core rule book, there's other books, there's probably other species, but the core rule book identifies two commonly found aliens in the Third Imperium. There's the Aslan and the Vargur. The Aslan are essentially like a lion-like looking character.
They're large cat people.
Large cat people. They kind of have like a bear type of thing-ish. And then the Vargur are like wolf type creatures.
They're the large dog people.
Large dog people.
We got large cats,
cat people,
we got large dogs,
and large dog people. Now, there's got to be other species out there, whether they're built into the Traveler system or they're community created. But in the core system, it identifies those three options basically for character creation. And of course, they come with their own sets of like traits and characteristics and all the things that go with it, right?
So I will also direct everyone to go to travelermap.com. That's Traveler with 2 L's. That's one other thing we did not specify. Traveler RPG
it's spelled wrong.
Is spelled with 2 L's.
It has to differentiate from the actual word, right? You have to put that extra L in there so that you can find it in the old Google there. Because if you just type Traveler into Google, well, you're not going to get the game first.
You're going to find all sorts of things that are not Traveler game. Anyways, travelermap.com is the canonic space map of Traveler. And
that is the world, the galaxy as it stands, the galaxies as they stand.
You can zoom in as far as you want. You can see each sector. You can see each planet in each sector. And it is so cool.
It's massive.
It also works off of... So there is planet building in Traveler for the referee to do. It works off of a hexadecimal system. And each planet in each sector spits out a hexadecimal code.
Like a code. Okay.
That you can read off, and if anybody has done any looking into it, can look at that code and go, it's like a 6-digit code with A's, B's, C's, and numbers, and they can pick through it and go,
hexadecimal is 0 to 9 and A to F.
Yes. So what they can do is they can look at it, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's an 8-character code.
Okay.
And they can look at that code and see what the trading on that planet is, what the main resources on that planet, and if it's a temperate planet, if it's civilized, what the technology level of that planet is, how many systems are surrounding that planet, and all of this stuff comes from a simple hexadecimal code. And it is
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's really cool.
It is. And it also tells you what they have a whole little code, sorry, not a code, a legend for their planet or sector schematic, and it's very cool. Anyways, please go
check it out.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that address again?
Travelermap.com.
2 L's. Traveler, 2 L's, map.com. Cool.
Yes. Very cool little thing.
Speaking of giant maps and all the planets, you get to fly spaceships.
You do, because we're in space. We're in the future. Because we are space travelers.
Yeah. Does everyone get a spaceship right off the hop, or is the typical starting point for travelers? You're on a planet, you're doing jobs, something's going to happen, and now you gain access to a spaceship. Maybe you catch a flight by paying for it. You don't necessarily have your own ship right off the hop.
It is referee's choice.
Right. Obviously, depending on the story.
Yeah, but that being said, when you create your character and it's called mustering out, when you are done your stint in wherever you are, there's usually a chance that somebody in the crew has they get a chance to gain shares in a starship, or they get a spaceship for being that's on lease, or if it was a military kid, they got, you know, one of the old stock that they were getting
the retired
rid of.
out ones.
Yeah, and you become this crew with this rundown old ship, very Firefly like, very Han Solo and Chewie.
Love it.
Running around, you know, banging on the bulkhead to make everything work.
Yeah. This is like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly. Yeah. And
I love it.
And so you get to fly this ship, and there's no faster than light communications in Traveler.
Oh,
either.
okay.
So you can run from the law as long as you stay ahead of word of mouth.
Right.
So
you can continue to be on the lam.
Exactly. And with that also, data running becomes a thing. So you can transport whatever data from this planet to that planet and get paid for that job.
It's a job.
Or you can, now nobody has actually told anybody how money works, whether it's just a PDA that's got a number on it.
Right.
Because
I like the Star Trek world of money, where money doesn't really exist. It's just goods and services that exist.
Yeah.
It just simplifies things.
It does.
But that's not fun in a game, though.
No, utopias are never fun.
No.
But yeah, we get starships, and they're in the core rule book as well as the supplemental books. There are rules for building your own starship. So your crew gets together, you guys are sitting around the table, you did your character creation, you know, had a bunch of laughs over a couple hours just building character. You sit down and say, the referee goes, okay, do you guys want to build your own ship, or do you want me to give you a ship? Yeah, we're going to build our own ship. No, of course. That's cool. So you do some rolling on some tables. You decide what size of ship you want, because there's all sorts of different sizes, shapes. You know, this one's better for running goods. This one's better for doing science experiments on. This one's better. Very Star Trek-y.
Right.
Where you got your different classes. And you can just throw something together and fly it. And it is,
right.
It's so cool.
Well, and I liked the concept that they don't have to be newer ships, right? You were saying they can be older, outdated ships. There's a table dedicated to those outdated ships, how old that ship is, how much of a discount you would get if you bought it, and then how many rolls on the quirks table that you have to make, which there's an entire table then dedicated to what type of ship is it? Is it a trader ship? Is it a military ship? Is it just a different type of ship? And then you roll your 2d6 on it, and you get something like, for example, the ship was blacklisted, and traders will, the trader will be impounded in several systems. Do a DM -1 to all broker checks while you're flying the ship, right? Like again, now you have another opportunity where, okay, the referee has gifted, quote, this ancient ship to the players. They don't realize that the ship came with 4 quirks and there's 4 people in the room. Well, each of you are going to roll onto this table and you're all going to pull forward now a quirk, right? Maybe the sensors are all damaged and now they're losing a roll on electronics, right?
Yeah.
But there's good stuff on here too, right? The ship was well maintained, reduced all maintenance costs by 50%. Like it's another opportunity for you to inject some storyline into it. And you then, as the referee or the GM, you now have another thing to land on. Well, your ship was in a position where it wasn't well maintained, and on your flight from planet A to planet C, you got waylaid onto planet B, and it turns out the ship is blacklisted. It was stolen from some guy, and here you go. Now you've got an entire adventure that's kind of built itself on one roll of the dice.
The emergent storytelling of this game is phenomenal.
It's just so fun.
It's unreal how a story just pops out of a few dice rolls.
And this is the type of thing, like, I think to how when I DM Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and how sometimes it's a slog. Sometimes it's tough because it's like, I gotta think ahead of the party. These are typically the things that the party does. So this is kind of what we're gonna do. Whereas with games like Traveler, we're gonna show up. I know full well kind of what the overarching story is, but I can't plot much out because you're gonna roll on a table like this and we're gonna change gears.
We're gonna
so not
shift
only
gears real quick.
yeah. And so not only now does that save me on my my prep period of time, but it also gives me an opportunity to flex my my flexibility components within the game creation. So you're gonna roll this dice, we're gonna land on planet B. Well, now I'm gonna have to go through my notes, find something that's relevant, or we make it up as we go, right? And again, too, there's generators in the system that allow you to pull forward a person who's on this planet, who's maybe the mayor of the city, maybe he's the head of the military police force. You got to grease a couple wheels so that they don't rat you out and throw you in jail for the rest of your days, kind of thing, right?
I feel like we may have downplayed how many tables you can roll on in Traveler.
There's a lot. There's a lot of tables.
It's unreal. Like the rule book is what, 170 some pages long?
Something like that.
240 some pages.
Yeah, I have the last page is 240. But I mean that counts like the definitions and stuff like that. But yes.
Of those 240, I would bet, and I feel very safe with this bet, 100 of those pages are tables.
They'll have a table on them in one way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
Right? Like I scrolled to a random page. I scrolled to page 208, and there's a table here for freight traffic.
Yeah.
Right? And it's part of the mail system. So you're a courier. Mail is a special form of freight consisting of large data storage drums which contain a vast amount of information. And then you've got the freight traffic in there. There's a table for that. There's a table for passenger traffic, for the costs for the passengers and freight. Let's scroll up. Random page, let's see here. 89, rural encounters, starport encounters, random missions, random patrons, random targets. Like the ability for you to be like, okay, they landed on planet B, the ship is stolen, this is what we know. Help me Obi-Wan, book Obi, you're my only hope. Open up the page, boom, we roll on some tables, and now I've got an adventure ready to go again.
By the time the players discuss what they're doing, the referee has that entire planet
good to go.
Fleshed out to the point where he can play it.
Yeah.
And
you don't even have to actually roll the dice. You just open up a website to the generator and boom, done.
Exactly.
Click it 6 times. There you go. You're ready to go. It's the vastness of the system that allows for the storytelling, and the fact that it's so compact that it feels really easy.
Yes.
That's the best part about it. I really I dig that a lot. I mean, and that kind of tops off that last point that I had wrote here. The game puts an emphasis on sandbox play. It is 100% designed for you to go, okay, you're in a spaceport. What do you want to do? What type of character is it? Your character creator built this smuggler so that you're a smuggler, and your best friend is actually a military police, and you guys don't know about each other's lives, and you picked up a quest to go to blankety blank planet. Away we go, and things happen while you're out there.
And on that planet, your rival from high school is there.
Yeah, he's the head of police.
Exactly.
He's the mall security guard, and he loves to exercise his power, which unfortunately he does have power over you in this case, right? Like it's just so cool.
It's crisp and it's clean, and it does it very well. And that's this system is so cool for that.
It really is. Finney, final opinions, impressions of the game.
This is one of my favorite systems. I love Traveler.
So good.
Ever since I first found it, I have been obsessed with it because, again, the emergent storytelling that is capable in this system just lends itself to just an easy, relaxed game to sit and play with. You got an overarching story that your referee knows. Okay. Everything else is off the board.
It's all sandbox from there.
It's however the players get from point A to point B.
And it doesn't have to be. No. It's just the game shines the brightest when you allow it to be. If you're someone who can't do that type of game, don't worry. You don't have to do it that way. But I think that if you're going to learn how to flex those muscles a little bit on your side, to learn how to quickly adapt and change, this is the way to do it.
It really lets your imagination run wild with things that could have happened and what brought everybody to this spot. And that's what really makes it a fantastic system, is that it allows the referee to be flexible like that, to say, hey, okay, you guys did this. Well, I wasn't planning on that, but I also didn't plan on, like 4 sessions ago when you guys popped the president of planet Pluto.
That's right. Exactly. The minor noble.
Yeah. Again, this character creator is one of my favorite things in the world. It's just so
fun.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's about it. How about you?
I would completely agree on all fronts. One of the things that I like the most about Traveler is that the game is incredibly versatile, right? And it's something we've been talking about the last little bit here. It allows you to adapt the game to the groups that are playing it instead of the other way around. A lot of the other games we play, Dungeons and Dragons, for example. Dungeons and Dragons has a very strict set of rules. While you have flexibility and autonomy over those rules, the game at its core is the way that it plays. In that game, your players adapt to your world and they play in your world. In this game, the game adapts to your player's world. What they want to do is how you actually play the game, which is one of the coolest things, because essentially you can now pull your group together consisting of whatever type of players that they are, and everybody's going to get what they want out of that game. I think that's really cool because of the flexibility and the versatility of the game. If your group is one that likes a lot of storytelling and a little bit of combat, done. Simple. If your group is one that's we want Starship Troopers, baby. We want to land on a planet and just kick some bug ass. All right, done. No problem. You can do that.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be taking jobs. Like, I've been throwing around the idea of doing like a Star Trek themed where it's not, data running or this. It's diplomatic missions. It's seeing new worlds and exploring them and charting them.
Exploration and mystery kind of thing, right? Like,
and it's
so versatile.
It's very versatile.
And that's one of the best. Well, that's one of the things. Traveler's a fantastic game. If you've never played a 2D6 system before, this is a perfect opportunity for you to jump in. You don't need much to play it. The core rulebook's available. You can pick that up and away you go.
I honestly
Very simple.
Don't know how many other 2D6 systems there are.
There's lots of game systems out there, but this one, in my opinion, does it the best.
Very good. Yeah. What about cons? What are you feeling for cons of Traveler?
For somebody who has analysis paralysis, this game's hard. I read out the specializations in science, right? So when the one thing that I really struggled with character creation was I would get a point. My guy went through university, and every year you go through university, you get to put a skill point in somewhere, and it was like, plot a skill point in your specialization. I wanted my guy to specialize in electronics, but I didn't know which one I wanted to go into. So then what I had to do is open up the book, read all the specializations, go, which one is this character good for? And it's really hard to make those decisions when you're somebody that has to analyze every single tiny little point. You will get lost entirely in those analyzing situations. So I would recommend use the dice as much as possible. If you're presented with a table, roll the dice for the table. Don't choose from the pieces. What I should have done in that character creation moment, I should have rolled dice, picked the specialization based on that. Because that would have eliminated the choices, and it would have then forced me to be like, okay, while he's in university and he's learning about electronics, he's actually going to be somebody that is, and that character ended up being a spy. Like he was like an espionage professional. So the electronics specialty would have been like gadgets and gizmos stuff, right? Like James Bond type of things where I've got a pen in my shirt and it's a listening device or something like that, right? It's got, while it's very versatile, while, you know, the pro I gave it, the versatility, if you're somebody who gets killed with decision making, this one's going to be a bit tough. Leave it to the dice gods.
Yeah.
Just put all your faith in their hands and they won't lead you astray.
Yeah. My con would be that there's no way to make a well-rounded character.
That's true. Yeah, everybody's going to have their real heavy flaw and their very obvious, like...
Again, that also lends itself to the storytelling of Traveler, and it does tie into the pro of Traveler, is that nobody's going to be good at everything.
That's right.
Someone is going to be really good at this. Someone's going to be really good at that. Someone's going to be really good at the other thing. And that's it makes it... It's very Firefly-y, right?
Yeah.
You got Mal, who is the boss, but what does he actually do?
He's the captain.
He can talk.
He does captain things.
Exactly. And then you got...
his social score wasn't so good.
Exactly. And then you got the engineer, and then you got this pilot, and then you got the muscle head. Like... It individualizes the character and sets them apart from the other ones, and not just in I'm a barbarian, I'm a rogue kind of thing. Right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You're a person. You're your own person. You get your benefits and stuff. I don't know. Fantastic game.
I will say there are no level ups. There's no levels.
Oh, that's true. Right.
There's no levels up. There's no getting better. You can train skills, but it takes like weeks and weeks worth of work for you to train a skill. But there's no levels. There's no getting better. It's pretty cool. So
it's different.
Yeah, because when
you could see that as a negative. If you're somebody who's like got that video game mindset, that may be a negative.
Yeah, because again, when we create our characters, they start young and they end up in their mid-40s when they start being the quote-unquote traveler.
That's right.
So you basically have all these skills that you've gained through your life, and you're just putting them to use now. So that's not to say an old dog can't learn new tricks, but
of course
it's going to be harder and harder to do that. So, yeah, I think that's about
that's Traveler. That's it in a nutshell. I would
check
say.
It out. It's so cool.
You definitely should. Finn, for the close out the show discussion, I see that you put one in here that is going to be next to impossible for me to answer, which is why I'm jumping on it and forcing you to do it first. Let's talk about the most memorable character that you've ever played, or one of the most favorite characters that you've made in your history of gaming.
In my very short history of gaming, my favorite character that I have made is probably Mizaz, the bugbear monk.
That was a fun character. You brought that one for like our in-game, our annual in-game D&D.
This was our D&D 5e and a bugbear monk of the astral self. So this allows me to get reach on my attacks. I make these astral arms. They reach 5 feet further than my fists can punch. Well, I'm a bugbear. And
so you're already reaching.
Is already 10 feet. So I was punching things from behind someone. Actually, I could punch things from behind two people,
right
in front of me. And it was.
What does that give you? Does it give you a 10-foot reach?
With the
so
arm,
you have a 5-foot
with
gap,
the astral
and then you'd
arms,
have a 10-foot gap.
With the astral arms, it gave me a 15-foot reach.
That's so funny.
It was ridiculous and so much fun to play. And that also, we were playing at a level 7, I believe. So we got a bunch of the cool monk feats that really lended itself, like the slow fall and the wall walk stuff.
That's so cool.
That was my favorite character so far that I've made.
Monks are characters that I've just never, ever connected with. I haven't found a monk that I'm like, this is the character that I want to play for D&D.
It was tough locking down a monk. It was.
Yeah, I get that. As far as it goes for my character, so I'm kind of drawn to two, if we're talking about memorable characters. So from a character build point of view, the most creative character that I've kind of created, like one that I enjoyed making, was Wedge. Wedge was a turtle ranger who threw hammers, and I designed him as like a hammer bro, right? Like that was his shtick. He was basically going to show up and it's like ba-na-na-na, and he was going to throw hammers when he got in, right? The problem is that D&D didn't play itself well to that. So throwing hammers didn't work the way that I thought they did. They didn't do as much damage as I thought they did. They didn't do the type of damage that I thought they did. And so Wedge ended up actually just using a warhammer, which kind of wasn't really the way that he was built. So he wasn't a lot of fun to play, but he was a really fun character. I think my best, most memorable character that I created would have been Whitley. Whitley was a halfling barbarian that was dexterity focused, and he would rage anytime someone commented on his size.
So he had 2 short swords. Yeah.
And he walked around, he had 2 short swords. He was a dual weapon fighter. I build characters with flaws. I cannot build the Superman. Like, that is not my character, right? My character is more like a Sherlock Holmes. They are really good at what they do, but they have got some seriously fatal flaws on their side, because that's the only way that I can really like get into that character. I have to be able to lean on something that's going to help me push that character forward. And in Whitley's case, basically, anytime we walked into town, if someone was like, "What's with the short guy?" I would lose it and start raging and get us kicked out. Right? Like that's basically was his thing. Someone was like, "Hey, why you got those short swords?" He's like, "Did you just say short?" And then you go nuts, right? Like that was the concept behind him. And poor Whitley died to a Medusa. Well, he didn't die, but he's currently a statue. He's a marble statue in a building somewhere. But I would say those would probably be my most memorable characters. If we want to go all the way back, my absolute very first character I ever created was Kalis, the Tiefling Warlock. Nice. And that was my absolute very first D&D character I ever played, ever. And he was fun, but he was really boring.
My first D&D character was Thorin Galanodal, and he was a elf paladin? No, elf cleric.
Nice.
I
love clerics.
Heavy male and wielding a morning star and a shield, and he was terrible.
Classic paladin.
He was terrible.
I find I tend to stick to non-human classes. I tend to, or races or species or whatever it is you want to call them now. I like dwarves. I like halflings. I will dip into elf every now and then, but not that much. And then very rarely will you see me anymore as like the tieflings, the gnomes. They're just they don't fit my play style. So my first character being a tiefling warlock was indicative of like what I wanted D&D to be. I wanted to be this like brooding, like, you know, rolls in and he's like psh, 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 magic, but I quickly learned that wasn't my style. Cleric is awesome. One of the in-persons we did, I did a halfling cleric of the light, and that was a fun character that I played.
Yeah,
and
you really
he was a
enjoyed
ton of
that
fun.
one.
I really enjoyed playing that. I love clerics, but they start so slow. They have such a rough levels 1 through 5 kind of thing.
They
right?
are a slow burn. Yeah.
A lot of fun later levels, but that's all I got, Finn.
That'll do it for us. Yeah.
I think that's going to put a cap on it. If you want to learn more about Traveler, you go and check out the websites. Remember to type 2 L's. There's 2 L's in Traveler. Make sure you do that.
We talked about the second edition, not the first edition.
Second edition.
And not
that's
any
right.
of the other numerous editions that have come along the way.
It's referenced as New Traveler or Mongoose Traveler.
Mongoose Traveler. Yeah.
Pick up the rule set. Play a game with your friends. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You can find us. There's a Discord. I actually put the link in the description this time, so it's there if you want to join the Discord and come chat with us about the show, or if you have any questions or you want to talk with us outside of this platform. Simply join the Discord and come talk with us in there. You can also find us, oftentimes, Finney joins me on Twitch streams. That's twitch.tv/DGonline, and YouTube at youtube.com/@DadGamingOnline. That's where you'll find the YouTube version of this podcast as well. But that's all I got, man. Do you want to plug anything, Finn?
I don't. I'll be around Discord and DG's channels.
Come hang out with Finney and I in the Discord. That's the best place to do it. If you have questions, comments, or you want to talk to anything about the show, please. There is your platform of choice. Please leave a comment, rate it, tell your friends about the show. Nothing helps us grow better than to do that exact thing. Have an awesome one.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.